Buying irons second-hand as a beginner is one of the best moves you can make when starting this game. Mainly because you're going to save hundreds as well as getting quality equipment that'll help you in the game. However, golf equipment can be extremely confusing. So what do you buy? Where do you buy? When do you buy? And that's exactly what we're going to cover in today's video. All the way from shaft, head, lie, different models, as well as where to buy and potentially what to buy, so that hopefully you can have the best start possible in this game. Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. Simon here, SAS Golf Academy, where I do all my in-person teaching, online tuition, as well as second-hand club fitting, which is what we're going to be focusing on mainly today, especially when it comes to beginners and beginners buying irons second-hand, which I think is a great move, and I'll discuss exactly why. But at the same time, obviously, they don't know what to buy, and that's why I see a lot of them even 3 months into the game, 6 months, even a year, buying a brand new set of irons, just to have standard length, standard lie, standard reg flex, standard forgiving head, just so that someone on the other end can go, yep, that'll probably suit you. So here's the 3 heads I'm choosing for today. And don't get me wrong, we can go older than these. I probably wouldn't go newer. They're all roughly around £500, let's say, for 5 to pitch and wedge, so under £100 per club. Now, even though they're all slightly different and they've each got their own section in this video, so I'm going to highlight some mistakes I think most beginners make when buying a second-hand set of irons. All of these would suit a beginner under a year because they are big, they are chunky, and they are very forgiving. However, as I mentioned, you could go newer or older. The older the iron, the cheaper it's going to be, but potentially the less out there in good condition, or the shafts that you actually need, length you need, lie you need. Now, some of you will need to hear this from a golf coach, someone's been playing this game for a long time, as well as club fitted brand new stuff and now club fit second-hand stuff. Performance-wise, between these 3 heads, exactly the same. It's all to do with the shaft, the length, the lie angle. That could make a difference, but at the same time, because your swing's so new, so evolving, changing, inconsistent, at the same time might not also make a huge difference if it's perfectly fitted for you as well. And again, I bring you back to my choices, as all 3 of these are big name iron brands in the game. Meaning, if you buy these, you improve a lot, or actually you chose the wrong irons that for whatever reason you don't like, you invest 500 into these irons, next year, 6 months, 3 months time, they are going to be worth the same amount of money. And that's why I say second-hand irons is a great move for beginner golfers, no matter what you buy, as long as you buy something similar to what I have here. Even the best club fitter in the world couldn't guess what a 6-month beginner golfer swing's gonna look like in a year's time. And if done wrong or guessed wrong, then potentially investing £1,200 or £1,300 in a brand new set of irons can be quite a costly mistake. And speaking of mistakes, let's get into section 1. Length, and how I think most people overcomplicate this. Very often I have guys that are 6 foot plus, they're not hitting the ball that well, and they're thinking, Simon, I need longer clubs, I need ½ an inch longer, I need 3/4 of an inch longer. And I just want to show you this chart on the left hand side, because sometimes that could be the case. However, let me talk about the downsides and upsides of a longer club. Number 1, I'm 6 foot or just over 6 foot, and my wrist to floor measurements between 35 to 36 inches. So that's measuring that crease there down to the ground. Technically, I should be 1/4 of an inch longer. And to put that into perspective, you could be 6'4", but have longer arms than I do in terms of like proportion, and also be recommended 1/4 of an inch longer clubs. The longer the club, the harder it is to release a club. It's why we all slice our driver but hit our pitching wedge quite well when we start. Therefore, if you're a beginner, you slice the ball quite a lot anyway. And unless you're very tall with quite short arms, you probably don't need ½ an inch longer, 3/4 of an inch longer. And to be honest, as someone that does play 1/4 of an inch longer irons, I could quite comfortably play with standard length as well. Don't overthink the length of the club too much. There's more important factors when it comes to striking and hitting the ball straight, and typically it's going to be around technique rather than quarter of an inch longer on the end of the shaft. Lie angle can play a huge part in the direction of where your ball wants to go. I've got a green dot ping at G425 here alongside an orange dot G425, which is flatter. So 2 degrees flat versus 2 degrees upright. And if I put them side by side, you can see how the hosel of this one is steeper. So again, it's pointing upright more. That very much flatter. All you need to know realistically, and why a good portion of irons, beginner irons that are club fitted, are a bit more upright, is because the fitter sees this kind of fade, potential slice with a standard lie angle club, something kind of like that, and they go, if I give that player an iron that's a degree, maybe 2 degrees more upright, I could shave off some of that left to right spin. And the reason this works is because irons have loft. Therefore, a driver, a lie angle doesn't really make all much sense, because at 10 degrees, or let's be honest, 9 degrees of impact, if I turn this face, the tee doesn't really move. As soon as I'm got 29, 30 degrees, 34 degrees worth of loft, and I then tilt that face, you can see how it wants to point more to the left, or let's say flatter this way. And again, because most beginners, especially when they come down to the ball, they are steep. They throw their hands out and their club comes in. Notice how it's more toe-based on the way down. Therefore, having a more upright lie actually makes the hands not move, but the club sit a bit flatter. And the same goes for flatter irons as well. Static measurements, like I showed earlier, with wrist to floor and height, is a good starting point. But no one would club fit me into a flatter lie based on my static measurements. However, I do play 1 degree flat. Sometimes I play 2 degrees flat. Because as you saw a minute ago, my bad shot is a snap hook left. My club face is always been way too close. Therefore, if I have a flatter lie on the ground with my irons, it somewhat offsets that hook spin, meaning that I can kind of hit my shots a bit straighter. So with length and lie covered, and hopefully you're understanding that these small movements of, let's say, a tiny bit more length or less length, or a tiny bit more upright or less upright, isn't going to make a huge difference. Yes, it's going to make an adjustment, but it's not going to stop you topping and thinning the ball, or shanking it, or having that 40-yard slice. As an overall quick guide, graphite is lighter than steel. It's also more expensive as well in the second-hand market, as well as brand new. However, if you're in your late 50s or maybe early 60s, just starting the game, and I'm talking you have a bad back. I'm not talking about your fit 55 and 60-year-old, because again, got clients in their 60s, even 70s that swing very fast and don't need graphite. But you know through injury, surgery, mobility, that you're not going to be able to get loads of distance. There's not going to be loads of distance gain. Starting with a graphite shaft isn't the worst thing in the world, as it does help give us a tiny bit more speed. It does help launch that ball up in the air. And as I've just shown there at, let's say, 74 miles an hour, 75, which would be on the top end of putting a graphite shaft in the bag in my eyes, we've got a decent carry there of 140. And again, I can't stress how important efficiency is, as well as your club path, your angle attack. Getting the right launch and spin can give you 140 yards of carry, can give you 150 yards worth of distance. Not to mention if you've got arthritis and your hands hurt, especially when it's cold playing golf, getting a thicker grip, a mid-sized grip, even oversized if you've got large hands, and a graphite shaft is good. Numbs the vibrations on any bad shot, meaning you can commit to the shots better. If you're scared to hit the ball because of the pain, you're not going to be able to commit. You're definitely not going to be able to play good golf, no matter what set makeup you've got. With that being said, graphite is more expensive. It's harder to find secondhand, and unless you're in that category I just described, just because you're not hitting the ball that far at the moment is probably due to technique. And if you're fit, able, have mobility, and you're 30, 40, 50, even 60, a light steel with the same kind of properties, probably not as exaggerated as a graphite, will still suffice cheaper to find, and easier to find. So that's shaft materials. Let's go into flexes. More importantly, profiles as well, because this is one thing I see a lot of beginners, even intermediate players, potentially advanced players, get so bogged down into. And yes, the shaft's important. However, if you're spending more time worrying about your shaft than actually your technique and golf game, that's when I can see it as a detriment. To prove a point, I'm going to hit this tensai red, which is a high launching, low kick point shaft, light, going to help the ball in the air. And then the granddaddy of low launching, low spinning shafts, the Project X 6.0. And my point being is that I could play, if I wanted to, with both clubs. Again, these are going to be in the same setup, standard length, standard lie, and I'm just going to hit the graphite first. And again, because it's light, I felt the club move in my swing. The lighter the club, the lower the kick point, the more of a feeling you have on the head, more of awareness, which I think is a good thing for a beginner, especially one that doesn't necessarily swing as fast. As being aware of your club head, or even where the face is, can help your timing and your tempo. For me and many others, especially faster players, it's the opposite. And again, I want low launch because I swing quite fast. I don't want the ball up in the air for a long time because the wind's going to buffet it all over the place. And I should, with a higher lofted, more controlled head, not this one here, be able to get spin with that low launch. So the goalposts change when you're starting this game. You typically want the ball up in the air and help getting to the green, hence forgiving heads, hence high launching heads, because again, with those high launching heads, you're going to have higher torque, which is going to offset your slice, which typically most beginners have. And now this profile has changed altogether. Again, if I weighed this shaft or just had this without the head in one hand and that in the other, very little difference in terms of overall weight. I can't feel 40, 50 grams, which in essence is what we're talking here. However, now feels very stiff. I can't really feel the head. Most of the weight is now here, which again, for my aggressive tempo, helps. Not to mention it's now low torque. This won't want to go left. I could arguably think with the reg flex, I've kind of tried to push it more to the right so it didn't snap hook, which again doesn't really make sense, but I guess in my head at the time it did. And for me, that is a better shot. But for a complete beginner, they would absolutely take both of those red dots, regardless of what shaft actually gave it to them. And please bear in mind, sorry, this is the Project X here, I forgot to change the label. But just remember, these shafts here, number 1 and number 2, are so different. Like on the scale of shafts, there's tens of thousands of shafts between that tensai red and that stiff Project X. And yes, I got lower launch. And yes, I got less spin. And even better golfers, more consistent golfers than myself, I'm sure, would be able to see much bigger differences between those two numbers. But I like to think I'm more consistent than a beginner golfer, and that's how much difference two different shafts on opposite ends of the spectrum made to my swing today in the studio making this video. With that being said, let me just give you a quick guide of what shaft, just so that you have a good idea of what potentially might work best for you, even though we haven't even touched the tempo, timing, placebo, feeling element of this, and that's kind of where a club fit comes into. 80% of you, 70% of you, I would say just a high launching, high spinning shaft, which typically means the kick point's more down here. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to feel more of the head, the club face. And I like high launch and high spin for a beginner because it offsets your bad shots. The more backspin, the less it can really curve. However, with a bit of research, and these are just some examples, we can affect the launch and we can affect the spin. So for example, on the end of the spectrum, we've got this KBSC taper and Project X. Typically, you're only going to find these in stiff flex or X stiff, some reg flex, but it kind of goes against the point of what the shaft actually does. And with these, the kick point's higher. It's going to feel heavier, and these are suited for, let's say, faster tempo players. For any brand new beginner, I would highly not recommend either of those shafts. But if you do launch the ball really high and you do spin the ball a lot, getting something that's, let's say, a mid-launch, mid-spin shaft like these would be also suitable. Again, each of these shafts I have here, so they're all different profiles, normally have 3 different flexes, which again, tweak and turn the kick point as well as the torque. As I say, there's tens of thousands of shafts. That's just a brief explanation of what shafts can and realistically also can't do for you. To be fair, I should have probably mentioned this earlier, but just a good indication of a beginner head is just its dynamic, oh, I shouldn't say dynamic, static loft. This JPX 921 Tour, so these both came out same year, by the way, so they'll be the same price, secondhand. 34 degrees loft, you can see it stamped there. That would be good for me. It's not as offset, it doesn't want to go as far to the left. It gives me backspin because I don't want to keep hitting my 7-iron 200 odd yards. As we can see here, this JPX Hot Metal 921, again, came out the same year, is much bigger. It's a lot more offset, it's more forgiving. It's going to drop your spin, but that means more distance. And out of the three options, I would say that's the most forgiving, high launching, high spinning. The T300's in the middle, i.e. it's still these are all forgiving by the way, but it's a bit less spinning. So again, if you're wanting more distance or you know you spin the ball too much, this would be a nice option. This, on the other hand, is just an animal in itself. And again, for $450, as we go through the prices in a minute, it's going to be very strong lofted. It's going to be powerful. It's going to give you lots of distance, especially if you know you spin the ball too much. So I'm going to go on eBay. And eBay in 2025 is incredibly safe. eBay doesn't really protect the seller at all, protects the buyer. That being said, if you don't want to go down that route, there's loads of professional sellers that you can just buy through their website. And again, guaranteed next day delivery. I work with Replay really closely. Highly recommend using those guys. But let's find on eBay a set of golf clubs that I think is going to be a good price. We're going to go with the Mizuno. Again, I think they look great. We're going to go for a light shaft. Again, I'm not doing this live at the moment, but it'll be here on the right-hand side. And I'm hoping that I'm going to show you a few sets at around 400, 450 pounds. Now, if you desperately need a certain lie angle, i.e. really flat or really upright, I highly recommend just going with Ping because it's stamped there. A person could say these are 2 degrees upright, 1 degree upright. I have no idea if that person's telling you the truth or if they even know. Again, with beginner clubs, cast clubs like these, all the bigger ones that we have here, you can't really bend the lie angle. Again, hopefully you understand how little difference it makes, but then at the same time, if you need it done, just go with Ping because it's just there stamped on the head. I'm also going to go for the year before this. So I'm going to go JPX 919 Hot Metal, and to find out years of models of irons, just go on the internet and just type in Mizuno irons by year and they'll give you a long list. And I want to show you the price of a second-hand set of 919 Hot Metals and how they're going to be around 350 pounds, 400 pounds. So there's 2 years difference between these irons, meaning that as a beginner, you could buy these. You've chosen the shaft that might suit you, you've chosen the length, you've chosen the lie, for example, and you've just gone and played, you've practiced, you've had lessons, and in a year's time you go, you know what, I don't want my 7-iron to go too far now. I actually need lower launch, not higher launch because I'm faster. I need less offset. Let's trade them in, and you're gonna get basically 350 to 400 pounds for them as long as they're in good condition. Trade it in, sell it yourself, whatever it is, and then buy the same model, like I showed you that JPX Tour, like you'll lose zero money. It's the shaft, it's the length, it's the lie, that can make all the difference, not necessarily the technology. And if you get all of it wrong, it doesn't matter because you haven't lost the retail price that you would do with a brand new set of irons. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Any questions, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you in the next one.